Hey, it's the Chief Bonnie with Board Games and RPGs, and this is a review of the board game Whale Riders from writer Knizia. A little bit weird on the theme, but boy do I love this game, so I wanted to do a review. And I'm going to tell you right up front, it's now almost impossible to get, so if that's going to make you mad, skip the review. But my hope is that it will come back in some other iteration, if not a straight reprint. Maybe it'll get a re-theme because I love the mechanics of this game. So let me pop in, show you what this is, then we will pop out and I will tell you why I like it so very, very much. Also, go watch One Piece. A little bit of manga on Netflix, baby. It's good. It's real good. So the base goal of the game is that players will be sailing along the ice coast. You can see the coast coming along here. We will be starting at the sun. Along the way, we'll be buying goods. I'll show you how that works, and you'll be fulfilling contract cards, and I'll show you some of them and how they work in a little bit. The cards will make you money, and the money will allow you to buy the goods. You can see the goods displayed along the ports. 0, 1, 2, 3. They get expensive as you buy deeper and deeper into the goods market. I'll explain more of that in a second. As you sail down the coast using actions to move and buy or get coins or fulfill contracts, again, I'll explain in a second, you will sail down. As you're working down, you can't back up. You can't stop here, grab some, and then back up with a move and buy some and then move forward again. It's one-way travel, so I can stop and buy and hang out there for a while and then move on and buy some more. But by the time I get down to here, I could stop here for a while and buy some, but when I start to move, now I'm moving back up the coast all the way to the top, and eventually the game will end when someone or multiple people get up to this area and they start buying the pearls. The person with the most pearls at the end of the game is the winner. You can also pick up pearls like this one right here in the markets as you go, and you'll get pearls from the contracts that you'll turn in. So in a turn, you can use 2 actions, and there are 5 different actions you can use in any combination. You can even use the same action twice if you want. So I'm going to show the 5 actions, but first let me tell you what each of these are. First, you can just advance your whale. So your whale can simply sit there and say, I'm going to move one. I've got this guy laid down just so you can see him. Moving one would be one of my actions. I could buy a tile. So my next action after moving, I could buy a tile. Now this first tile costs me 0. The first spot in each one of these areas has 0 cost. So my next action could be take a tile or buy a tile, but it costs me nothing. So now this goes into some of the goods I have. But if I wanted to, maybe I was short on money. You're always needing money generally to buy these other tiles, not the first one, which is free, but then $1, $2, $3, or coins. I shouldn't say dollars. So if you don't want to take the 1 coin action into my bank, I could discard contracts or I could fill contracts. Let me show you the contracts real quick and then I'll explain those more. So let me lay out several examples of contracts so you can see them. And then I'll just walk through what they are. And you'll be able to figure out that every once in a while you'll have contracts in your hand that you're no longer going to want. So you may end up using an action to discard them. Let me move this guy back so you can see this one here. So you're always going to have 3 of these contract cards in your hand. You'll start with 3. And if I were to fulfill them, which we'll cover in a second, I will always replenish back. But we'll get into replenishing in a little bit because it also has to do with the market here. The cards are real simple. First, you will see if you succeed in fulfilling a contract, I would get 5 pearls. I would just keep this card in my play area, and it would be worth 5 pearls to me, and it would net me 2 coins. So you can see some of these cards will net you more money than coins. Like this one over here is going to get me 4 coins, but only be 1 pearl. But maybe I need the money, or maybe I just have those set of goods. So let me just walk through what these were. If I had 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of salmon that I had collected from purchasing from these different markets, I could decide I want to fulfill contracts, and I could turn in 7, or sometimes you'll have a tile that has multiple pieces on them. You can't make change, but let's say I had 8 of these I could turn in 8 pieces of salmon and fulfill that contract. Now, a real cool thing about taking the action of fulfilling contract is, remember, I have 3 contracts in my hand. So if I have enough goods that I could satisfy this contract and maybe that contract, again, I can't split tiles between multiple cards, but if I had enough, I could fulfill all 3 cards in my hand if I have enough goods. That would be a very efficient use of the action of fulfill contracts. Now, how do these work? This one's a little more interesting. You can see it's just 5 different rectangles that are shaded out. Well, that simply means it doesn't matter what the good is that's pictured here. I like to call it a blue vase. All that really matters is that I have a rectangle. And if I turned in 5 rectangles, doesn't matter what is on them, then I will get 5 pearl and these 2 coin. You can see this one would be a mixed lot of goods. I would need 2 kelp, 2 blue vases, 2 salmon, and 2 conch shells. This one's going to be a little bit easier. I don't need nearly the amount, but it's not going to give me as much of a gain. You can see a bunch of conch. Now we come over here. I would need 10, and they're gray again. Gray means they could be any type of good. I could turn in 10 conchs to fulfill this card, or it could be, 1 salmon, 1 conch, 8 kelp. So that would get me this card. And you can see much easier. So because I don't need all 10, here I'm only going to need 4. Again, they're grayed out, so it's any type of good. I could turn in 4 pieces of salmon, or I could turn in 1 vase, 1 salmon, 1 kelp, 1 conch, whatever. That's going to achieve me the contract. So fulfilling the contracts is just you've purchased from these different markets or gotten them for free. I keep those in my play area. I have 3 contracts in my hand, and when I use the action of fulfill contract, I just need to be able to match what's on the cards. I'll then get the money, and the card stays in my play area to show that I have that many pearls. So let me show you kind of like a basic turn on how moving in the market works. So on my turn, I have 2 actions. Now, again, there's 5 different actions I could take, but one of my actions is going to be move to this port. And now I can buy one of these goods. Now I could move again if I wanted to get down to this port for some reason. Maybe there was some better items here or something. But let's say I moved one, and then I could either buy one of these or I could take that one for free. So maybe I just want the kelp because it's not going to cost anything. But maybe I want to take one of my 3 starting coins because I really need these 2 blue vases. Maybe I have a contract in my hand, and that's going to be helpful. So instead of taking the freebie, which was an option, I spend 1 coin and I end up taking the 2 vases into my play area. That's my 2 actions. Usually somebody at the table is going to now refresh this. Nothing moves, so nothing will move here until I've finished my 2 actions. Move 1 action, purchase 2nd action. Now we're going to get it ready for the next player. So first I slide the 2 items down, then I'm going to reach into a bag, and I happen to have a nice big Crown Royal bag. It's what my hand fits into. I'm going to blindly reach in. Now this bag is full of tons of other goods, but it also has, so in this case we've got a kelp. It goes there, but also inside the bag are a bunch of storm tokens. So the storm tokens are really cool, and you layer them into the bag based on, nothing will start with a storm token, but depending on the amount of players, there are a number of storm tokens that are put inside the bag. Now, had I drawn out a storm token instead of the kelp, it would take that spot. But what's real interesting with these storm tokens, let's say the next player moves, comes in, buys or takes the kelp for free. Everything's going to slide down. I would reach inside the bag just blindly, so I don't know what I'm pulling out, and I blindly pulled out, all right, we got a little salmon. So what will eventually happen if we stay in this port is people will usually take the freebie, everything slides, we'll refill 1 more time. There's a nice one, 3. So let's say it came back. I know I would be moving the other players that are here and everything. But again, if someone comes in and takes the freebie, by the way, the rainbow one just means it counts for any type of good. It's a wild good, a wild card. These would slide down. And again, I would draw out, ooh, nice, 2 pearls. And now what's happened is this storm will never move. So there's no longer going to be any free goods in this port. And what will sometimes happen is you'll end up getting a couple storms in. You might even have a whole port section that's just locked in with storms. Well, no one's going to go there. Matter of fact, the next players, they'll just probably, maybe not this one with that 2 pearl in there, but they may just bypass it and go down to a new one. Now, it would be well worth spending the money to buy the pearls, or maybe even the 2 to get the 3 conchs, but you can see this port has just become more expensive because there's no longer a 0 good that will slide down. That 3 is going to get stuck at this 1 if someone were to buy that salmon. So if someone came in, let's say they really wanted that salmon, they paid 1 for it, that's pretty expensive. Again, everything would slide down. Wow, another pearl. So the pearls are mixed through and they'll come up in the goods. That would actually keep this port pretty interesting. But you can get it locked in with something just like this, just coming out randomly, and now someone's got to spend 3 coin to get the 3 conch, and they may just say, heck with that, I can get down here and maybe even pick them up for nothing. Because one of my options is just move on, 1, 2. That would have been my turn. I used 2 actions. We would go to the other players. It comes back to me. And now I could get this for free if I wanted. I could just say, I'm going to take the 2 blue vases. We would fill this area. I would reach into the bag, pull out, luckily no storm, but now maybe I'm going 1, 2, everybody else takes their turn, and now nobody's down here. So even though I'm moving down the coast quickly, I might be able to pick up some great items, just take the freebie and then maybe buy that one. They slide down, nobody even gets down here. I could pick up the salmon. So you can end up picking up a lot of goods cheaply if you're ahead of the group. The other thing that can happen is sometimes you'll get left behind and maybe there's just a bunch of single items or something, although the pearl here would be good. But sometimes everybody moves on down to greener pastures and you might get lucky and not pull storms when you're refilling, and everybody's hoping you get a storm. We've had it where it's storm, 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 and they want somebody to pull out a storm because this person, nobody's competing, and they're just picking up these items cheaply as they sit there. In order to get to them, someone would have to go all the way down and come all the way back up, and they would be missing opportunities along the way. So very simple to play. It handles 6 very well. It's very strategic with 2. We've had it with 4 and 5. This game is so simple. Typical Knizia game. Very easy to play, very easy to grok. The randomness of when you're pulling out tiles and you might get a storm that ends up blocking. Of course, everything's filling from the back, but being purchased, it starts to slide down. And the fact that you only have 5 options. You're moving, you're buying goods, and then at some point in time, you can take a coin if you're poor. Hey, 1 action, I'm going to take 1 coin. Or you're either fulfilling contracts, the cards in your hand, at which point you're now turning in the goods in order to get more money and to get your pearl victory points. Or you're like, hey, I'm stuck with all these very difficult contracts I can't fulfill. I'm going to go ahead and discard one of my actions. I'll get new cards because you're always filling back up to 3 contracts at the end of your turn. Very tight game, takes about 45 minutes. I'll talk more about it as we come off of the example. All right, we're back. So I'm going to tell you, 1, why you are going to have probably a hard time finding this game, or it's at the very least going to be expensive. Grail Games broke whatever the contract agreement was with Reiner Knizia. It was broken, and he enacted his part of the contract that said they couldn't make the game anymore. So my understanding is I believe they sold it into some region that some other game company only had rights to sell into. That's my understanding. I don't know all the details, nor do I need to. This version is very, very pretty. Vincent Dutrait did the art. I personally think the theme is weird. Whenever I sit down and teach it, plays 2 to 6, which we'll talk about that in a second, I always tell people, kind of a weird theme, but you're going to be able to get the gameplay really quick, and it's a real cool, tight game where you're just going to be pulling in resources and then trading them in to get points off of cards or contracts that you have, as you've seen. So, first of all, how does it play with 2? Great. I will sit down with my wife and play this game, and it's very strategic. You've got to be careful. You've got to kind of stay in the realm of what the other player's doing. Racing ahead is a little bit hard because they can usually find a spot where they can just gain a lot of goods. But if you can get up and start buying out all of those, down the track and back up, and you're buying the pearls, maybe you can rush them and mess with their plans. But it's a lot more strategic, and usually that won't work. However, when you're playing with 6, it plays really, really well. Turns are quick, first of all. You're only taking 2 out of the 5 actions, and it's popping and moving, and people are messing with you. It's a lot more chaotic. But when somebody either gets stuck behind and they get into a gold mine where no storms are coming out, the whole crowd starts to get fired up, and they're kind of cheering for storms to come out. You get that group synergy really will rock with this game. But it's also chaotic because you can't plan as much for what you want to get. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to pop down there and I don't know what will be there by the time everybody else gets done with their turn. But it plays really well all at the same time because you usually have options, But there's a lot more screw your neighbor actions going on because there's a great good there. You're going to buy it on your next turn, and then everybody comes down and buys up all those goods in that line, and there's storms, and you're like, time to move on. But when somebody hits the bottom port and starts to march back, everybody gets nervous. And they know they'll start yelling, he's making a pearl run, he's making a pearl run. It's like, yeah, get him. So, again, I've enjoyed this so very much with 6. The only problem I had with 6 was when we were done, people were taking pictures of the cover. Two different couples got online, and then they were mad at me because the price was so much secondary market. They're like, why would you teach us a game that costs $150? I'm like, oh, it used to be $22. And then they're like, what? Because I'll get a lot of folks over here that aren't normal gamers, but we'll have these game nights here, and I'll get especially couples in. So, you're going to have a problem finding it. I know. I think it will be remade either with a different theme or something. I doubt they'll do a straight reprint of it. Just my opinion, but I bet you this gets remade because it's really in a nice spot. I think that 45-minute gameplay and how quick you're picking up items and trading in contracts, and the fact that it plays well with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is phenomenal. Plan on seeing this in another version, I think, but I have no knowledge. Because it fits so well in with so many groups of people, it's become a mainstay at my table. I know I can get it taught quickly and easily, and even those that seem a little confused, they've got it down within 1 or 2 turns as they watch other people play. So it's a pure joy at gameplay sitting on the table. I still find the whales a little odd, but of course the mechanics are just perfect. Tight, clean, easy. The gameplay, a lot of it is happening between the players at the table. And that excitement that builds when someone's making their move, their rush for the pearls in the sunport, or when somebody lays down and they're able to fulfill all 3 contracts with one real clean, crisp action. It just feels good. Or we had Woody. Justin Woody was at my house, and everybody leaves him behind, and he's sitting there in like whatever the second port is. The goods aren't that good. The first, second, third port, when they're first set up, they can't have 3 goods on a tile or 2 pearls or 2 rainbow tokens or whatever. But all of a sudden, no storms are coming out, and he's just picking up good after good after good. He's getting them so cheap, and people are like, oh, come on. And that chanting of storm started. And We got done and people, let's see, every time I've played this with a group, with a teach, we're up and playing in 5 minutes. We finished the game in 45, total of 50 minutes, and every single time the group has said, play it again, want to do it again. So it's getting that secondary play. So easy to teach, so easy to grok, and so fun to play. So hopefully reprint, because I know you can't get it right now unless you got a lot of bling. Unless you got a lot of coin, you can't get it. Chief, bonding with board games and RPGs. This is a great board game by a great designer, Knizia, with some very pretty art.